Good morning. Pete here from A Bit Twisted. Welcome to episode 3, Mother of All Repair. So we're finally getting to this point where we're going to fix this broken piece on the Mother of All, and also one other small bit on the Mother of All. And that happens to be the upright posts. So the upright posts on this particular wheel don't have the screws that hold them in place. So they just come off. Just like that. So what we want is, one, you do not want to glue these in place. These are not meant to be glued. They're meant to be able to move. So what they have is they have a screw on the bottom. And then there's a space. There's a space in the bottom. There's a little gap between the base and the peg that goes through. And the reason for the gap is when the screw is in there, the washer is a little bit bigger than the hole. When the screw's in there, it puts tension, which keeps these uprights nice and tight, snug, but just enough to where you can move them when you need to. And you can always periodically go and adjust them if it gets too loose. But you don't want to screw them in, you don't want to glue them in. If you glue them in, it's permanent, and if your angle is off, or if you need to move it, you're not going to move it. And unfortunately, some people do put glue in there and just glue it, not knowing. So now you know. Do not glue your uprights. So now what we need to do is we need to also get this off, get it outside, and find a suitable piece of wood, which I have. I have some poplar wood that's just about the right thickness and easily the right size. We'll take care of that in a few. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and get these upright posts put in place properly with screws and washers. So I went out in the garage and found 2 large stainless steel washers that are just larger than the hole on here. And I'll get you a close up here in just a sec. So it's a little bit larger, does not interfere with the workings of this when it's folded in place. But the issue that I found for me was the screws that I found have a small head on them, and the small head doesn't fit properly on the big washer. But what I did find was a couple small bolts that had a built-in washer, and my screw will fit in there kind of like a washer, but it has a little flange. It has a little flange on it, and that flange just happens to be larger than the hole on the washer, and so it fits. So I'm going to be using a 2-part. So each person, if they run into this, you may find that you might have to go run up to your local hardware store and find a proper large enough washer with a small enough hole in it to accommodate a small head screw, and you'll need to find a proper screw if you don't have one. I'm not sure if Ashford has these parts for sale as replacement parts to fix stuff. So I don't think these are typically lost. On this wheel, that was the case. which is unfortunate. But I found 2 screws. One's a flathead and one's a Phillips, but they're about the right size. And the holes that are here, I don't want the screws to be too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one of them, and then I'll bring the camera in, and we'll do a close-up of the other one. And then we'll get this off, these broken pieces off, and then we'll head on out to get it fixed, measured, cut, and all of that. So I won't get you with all the fine details of cutting and stuff like that, but some. So let's go with this front one here, or the one that's further away from you. So somebody used a piece of tape to snug it into place, but over time that tape just kind of died. So that was pretty pointless there. So I'm going to use my Phillips head like so. So I'm going to put this in here. That should stay in good enough. And then I'm going to get my double washer set up. This in. And then just put the screw in the base there. So this extra thing that I have here might be too much. I'd have to find another avenue here. So I'm just going to hold this here and just screw it in. So it's not too wide to crack anything. You don't want to bust any wood, because then that can get a little costly to replace that stuff. So you don't want to do that. And just snug it down. So now it's snug. So that's a little tight. So I'm just going to back off just a wee bit. Now it's snug, but it can move back and forth. And that's what you want. And it's also not going to fall off. So now we're like so. So now let's get the camera and bring it in a little bit closer so you can get a little better look at this. All right, so you should be able to see that this is down inside the hole. So if this is sitting flush, it's not going to work. So it has to be down in the hole. And then what I have here is I have the big washer, which is just bigger than that. And then I have this other little washer doohickey thing here, which has a hole just large enough for that to fit in. It's got this little flange on there, and this fits in the hole to keep it centered. And then we'll just sit that in there, and we're going to just screw it down. Get started. So I found some screws that are literally almost the exact size of the originals. And I know because I've fixed these before. But these are not original to the wheel, but we're not trying to put it back original, but we're trying to get it to where it's functional. And that's it. right there, just like that. This will close down on there and not be in the way. So here is now your, so that's a little loose still. So I'm going to snug it down just a little bit more. Just like that. That's how it's supposed to be. So that's part of the fix for the mother of all, and that's an important piece. And also these pieces here are black nylon with carbon built into the plastic, so these don't really need to be oiled, but some people do put just a tiny little bit of oil on them. Helps keep them a little bit quieter, and a little bit the sewing machine oil will not harm the nylon bushing. And these are replaceable. They sell replacement ones of these. I have a set on my other wheel that are actually leather. When Ashford used leather, I was able to pick up an old wheel that had leather ones. I kept them. And so if you want, you could use these as a template and make your own leather and slip them into place. But the leather has to be very stiff. So you'll want something good and stiff, like maybe even rawhide would work. And but thick enough and stiff enough to where it's not going to be floppy. So anyway, a little bit of trivia there. So let's go ahead and get started on removing Okay, so since these are standard size, so if you have a scenario like this and you still have these screws here, these screws are the same as the ones that go into the upright posts on the mother of all, including the washers. They're the same. So you can take one off, go to the hardware store and find a set of them, and that way you don't have to have a dual setup like I did, just because I don't have an extra set. So here you can see the hole is a lot smaller and the head is a little bigger, but size-wise they're the same diameter, all that. So if you find that at the hardware store, you're good. Get a couple of them just to have a spare on hand, just for whatever reason. So now I'm going to come to this one. And these are usually really easy to come off, just like you're seeing here. I have not taken these off since I got this wheel, so see how easy it is. So there's your broken piece here. So we can attempt to glue it, or we could attempt to make a new piece. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to glue it, since I have some really good glue. The Gorilla Glue is really, really good. And it might just be enough to allow it to work. Maybe. So I'm going to put those back in place so we do not lose them. I also found there's a thumbtack with a piece of cloth and an orifice hook attached to it, and this is original to this wheel. So we'll keep that. even the cloth. I may end up washing the cloth so it's nice again. Maybe you could replace it, but the thumbtack's going to go. I don't want that. Unfortunately, it left a tiny hole, but again, it's underneath a lot of stuff, so it's not going to be an issue. So we're just going to set that piece aside. So now, what we need to do, we're going to come here and we're going to take hinges off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back.